important topic. The concept of making human-centric workplaces is not new, but only during the pandemic, I have the impression that it started to trend heavily in Google search. There was even a time where any recognized human resources institution had to publish 2 to 3 articles per week about the topic. And many organizations were boasting about its benefits. So we have a study by PricewaterhouseCoopers saying that they found that 83% of executives believe that a human-centric workplace is essential for innovation and growth. There was a study from a university, I guess that this was the Warwick University, that found that employees who are happy and engaged at work are more productive by 12%. Anyways, what I want to do in this episode is to understand and have a raw conversation about if well-being should be considered a profit center because it brings benefits that can be quantified in the bottom line of an organization, or is it simply a sunk cost for corporates? And today, my guest is Reka Deak. There are 2 reasons why I found it quite interesting to have this discussion with her. One, she's an ex-strategy consultant. So what does it mean? It means that she cares about what brings results. She has been working as a management consultant for KPMG, Accenture, and some others that, in the list. But she's also the founder of a company that called Wellbeing Designers, kind of like a purpose-driven foundry enabling human-centric organizations to create well-being culture via strategic well-being education. And we are going to dig a little bit more, what does it mean in strategic well-being education? And she's also quite well known in the area of well-being because she's the senior advisor at the Josh Bersin Company, which anyone in HR knows Josh Bersin and follows and is registered to the newsletter or whatsoever. Reka, it's amazing to have you today with me to have this discussion. This discussion is about results, so it's not about the nice idea behind well-being. It's not about chakras. It is about what does it bring in an organization. Reka, before we start, I wanted to shoot directly with the question. So the definitions of well-being, my God, there is not a single one. There is kind of alignment about what could be well-being, but I want to understand from your own perspective, how would you define well-being in the context of the corporate world?
Yeah, hello everyone. Very nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, I am excited to share my answers and my point of view to all your questions. And as you said, it's a super exciting and super hot topic, not only in HR, but anywhere in business today. So to your point, the first question, so how do I define well-being in the context of the corporate world? If I may, I would twist a bit the question. So I would like to define a well-being culture in the organization, because I think there, as you said, there are so many definitions out there about well-being, and we can go deeper in that as well, like that is not wellness, it's sometimes mixed. So then what is it really in an organization? So the well-being culture, in my definition, is really a work culture where people are engaged to drive high team performance, achieve business goals, while having a sustainable work life and fulfilling their individual life purpose.
That's a big, complex one. So we have this concept of engagement up to alignment in our personal life. And this is where sometimes there is always like kind of a discussion about should it be the role of a corporation to care about your personal life?
Yes, I even have this chart that I show a slide. I might share it tomorrow on LinkedIn. I was thinking about this the other day. How did we get here? Why, companies have to take care of their employees' well-being? As you say, it's not so straightforward because you are in charge of your life. You get the work, you get the money. So then why to do more, right? And this concept, I think, shifted really through these last years when it all started with health and safety, because that's really the company's responsibility, that we don't get injured, when we do our work. So we feel safe. And that we mastered, our companies really mastered. So now there is very little number of accidents. And then something happened. So through the years, people started to work so much. And there was so much stress that people get, chronic disease. Now it's also scientifically proven, the effect of stress on our health, and yeah, this stress comes many times from work. So even before COVID, and then especially through COVID, companies started to realize that yes, we should do more, and then well-being programs emerged, and then through that. We still now are in this third phase of the evolution, when companies realize, yes, we do that. Maybe, it's still not enough. So what is out there? And then that's when we connect the well-being programs and all the initiatives with the ways of working, ways of leading, the culture. And then, this becomes really the whole package. And it's a big topic, as you say.
I see it's almost like companies at the beginning, they didn't know what could be the solution to implement well-being initiatives in their companies. I mean, it has been a learning process. That's understandable. So, and suddenly, and I was mentioning in the introduction, so a lot of people have been talking about it. Human resources people finally, they were defending the voice of employees instead of defending the voices of their senior management. So post-COVID, many organizations kind of learned the lesson and invested on their people. I want to understand, what was it effective, and did they invest in the right stuff? So post-COVID, so they had the time to learn normal, but today, are they doing the right stuff? Are they just implementing yoga lessons, meditations, or there is something more that has been built?
That's a very good question. I have a lot of stories out there. Maybe let's start with a very recent headline from the New York Times, which came out in January. The title was "Workplace Wellness Programs Have Little Benefit, Study Finds." And behind this study, there was a prominent institution, the Wellbeing Research Center of the Oxford University, and a professor called Dr. William Fleming. And yeah, in the wellbeing community, there is a lot of, back and forth discussions, posts about this. And yeah, I can share now my view, what I think, because basically the study found that they were examining people who were participating in some kind of well-being initiatives like resilience classes or whatever, and compared with the group who didn't participate, they didn't feel or see any difference. And then this raised the question, are we investing in the right thing? I find that there is definitely a gap, that companies, sometimes they just do things to tick the box, and they don't really do it the right way, which can be, do it more strategically, more holistically. So my view is to do sometimes, less is more. So maybe, we don't have to go too crazy with the amount of things, but then really spend more time and resource what is really needed, instead of spending more on the solution. And then we might more tackle, the right problem and with the right solution. So this is one advice that I have, that less is more. The second one is really the quality, that's, yeah, as said, not just, having anything what is out there on the market, but really working together with well-being experts and companies who deliver good and quality things that is really needed by our workforce. And then the third one is really connecting the dots, and this is on many layers. Also, it's a lot about education. So you can give these tools to the people, but they might not know then how they can really connect it back to their work life. It always takes so much time to develop habits, and sometimes these are one-time initiatives, and then people are left there. Okay, then do something now, use it. So I think it requires more time and support to really change behaviors and embed it. So connecting the dots between the learnings and really the how we use it. And then the second one is connecting also the dots between all these different areas of well-being, because I might learn something about physical health, but then I think, oh my God, but I have to do something about my mental health. When they are really interconnected, but we treat them sometimes separately because we have separate workshops about it or a separate pillar. And then really show it how individual well-being is connected to the organizational one. And that's also a lot about diversity and inclusion, that we respect, each other, because my well-being might, depend on something which is maybe not supporting your well-being. I like to do my focus time in the morning and not to have a call with you who I now work with, but you want to have a call on those days. So how do we, tackle this? And this is a real challenging work.
Reka, I'm going to ask whoever in HR is listening to this podcast to put their fingers in their ears, because I'm going to say something. So we know that there is more than 50% of people working in HR who has a psychology degree, right? So how can it be that they do not understand the identification of the root causes of whatever is happening with people in the office, and how can they link it with, you were mentioning the exercise about ticking the box. So how can they forget anything that they learn from human psychology and not have and believe that a speech of 3 hours is going to heal the organization, is going to motivate them to change? How can they think that a training of half a day is going to produce a change of actions, of routines that have been mapped in our brain day by day? It has become like a reflex, whatever we do, this thing about, I don't know, picking up the telephone and doing three things at the same time. People with toxic behaviors, managers with toxic behaviors, that we let them be just because they bring results, but they treat people like shit. So for me, it's quite incredible that we have this syndrome where human resources forgot, when they enter into the workforce, forgot to the human behind the SAP number, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And from the other side, I see that sometimes the solutions that there has been out there, there are certain solutions that are more adapted for prevention. Some of them are adapted for nothing because speech doesn't heal anyone. Some of them, you said it clearly, it is sometimes solution, less is more. It becomes even that do the essential. The essential might be in the systemic DNA of the organization. And these things, sometimes you don't need a consultant, you just need to do it, and to do it from the top to the bottom, and it costs nothing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, so let me defend the HR professionals and the community. I
You're too
wouldn't
nice, Reka.
blame them. Yeah, it's so first of all, I think they know this, and they have known this for a long time. But the role of HR also changed through COVID and through these last years. So now they are much more empowered to also bring up well-being, and they are taken more seriously, not only with well-being, but with any other topics. And you mentioned that, yeah, I am a part of the Josh Bersin Company, and exactly Josh Bersin is really a pioneer and for this in HR to say that the CHRO should be the second most important person after the CEO in companies.
Mhm.
And, I fully support that, because it's all about the people. So we learned it, especially now with AI, what is left are people. And I would like to say that yeah, sometimes these people, they have the right knowledge. Maybe they don't have the capacity because they have to do something and they just they are done. Okay, pick up this well-being topic as well, and then they don't have the resources for it or the budget. So then yeah, then they still have to do something because it's in their KPI to tick the box. So it's a systemic problem. It's not necessarily that these people forgot what they learned at the university about psychology and all of this. So I would say that how the role of HR changed during these past years, it really helped at the same time the topic of well-being, and it was parallel than what happened during COVID in general with well-being of the people. Yeah, that just started to put this topic on the top of the agenda of CEOs as well.
Indeed. I have to agree 100% that this role, the role of HR during COVID was much more important, and I could hear the voices, sometimes voices of pain, sometimes voices of disappointment that they were raising their voices on behalf of the employees, and they weren't heard. I have a little bit of that story, but I wanted to play still with the old
Of
HR
course.
devil.
Yeah. And you are absolutely right. And if you are not in it, you might not see it and think this way. But yeah, you have to really see the politics and the organizational dynamics.
In order to implement well-being initiatives in an organizations, we say there might be different ways. Certain things are taking the box, certain things are important, certain things are related to the culture of the organization, about the behaviors that have been maintained forever. Some of the things we need to learn how to manage, to prevent it, and sometimes when it's too late, how to heal it afterwards. And my understanding is that your work with your company, Wellbeing Designers, is using a science-based approach in order to help this organization. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what does it mean, a science-based approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the first thing what I emphasize more and where our initiatives start is meeting people where they are. And this has a lot of science behind, acknowledging what is difference, what are the differences between people's environment, perceptions, and also geographical location. And so there is a lot of things out there that you can unify, and there is an app for everything. But well-being is so different for everyone. If I start my keynotes, I usually try to or like to engage with the audience, and I ask people, what does well-being mean for you? And then we get all these answers. Of course, there is a pattern. And then the second question, by the way, is usually, what does well-being at work mean to you? So, and then we can see the difference, and there is a difference there as well. So, and this is a huge challenge if we talk about well-being in organizations, that these people who are responsible to curate initiative programs to then do that. So what we do then, meeting people where they are, is also then still create some kind of common understanding of the well-being in the company. So this is the first step, number one, and this is where the well-being education starts, so that we connect all the dots between different areas of well-being, and then also we connect the dots between the individual and the organization. So what is it then at work? And then all the other like science-based approaches, like what learning uses, and how we learn, how we create habits, how we use coaching for that, because I also meet companies who just like to save costs, or they don't have much budget, they just want to have a webinar or one-time workshop. okay, it's better than nothing, but really the change and the impact starts when you don't just do it one time, but you leave some time. People start to, implement it during their life, their work days. We do learn something more, maybe even learning in groups. So I really support the cohort-based learning and coaching each other, sharing experience. And then they are coached by externals as well. Then they again go back to practice, then they learn again. So it's a longer process. Might cost a bit more time and also money, but it has much more impact.
Well, regarding the cost, I have some, how to say, I don't fully agree, because paying, let's say, for a training of half a day, where the impact is going to be of, I don't know, 5% of people will do something about it, or having a program where, as you say, they have there is accompaniment to follow them up, to create new habits that are repeated, tried, and maybe amended during the full program, is what brings action. And what you definitely is what companies would want, is to have people, you say, engage, but not only engage, is that they are productive at work, because they are mentally there, not the ones who are like, I know some personal stories, like me once upon a time, staring at the PowerPoint for 1 hour without doing shit, because my brain was frozen. So that's
Yeah.
the story.
And
People want results, and if you want results, you have to create the capacity for people to start doing something. Because when we attend a webinar, when we attend an online training, or even a physical one, and we don't have the capacity to practice, we are not creating these routines in our brain, because we have to get rid of the old shit that was polluting our well-being. So we have to reprogram ourselves, and that is only done by consistency of actions. It's not about intensity, like let's do a mega workshop where everybody's sweating, and then it's going to happen.
Yeah, totally. And thanks for bringing this up. So yeah, it might cost, more as a one-time expenditure, but if you have the whole business plan behind, how much benefit it will bring then later to have, even less sick days, you can retain more people in the organization, then, the business case is there. But this is something that is not happening in many companies, this depth of measurement. And elaborating on your thoughts about it's cool, we have a lot of people engaged in the one-time intervention, but then what's the impact, right? So then if people go home and then they just continue their lives, or maybe they start thinking about it, and there is a difference between that and then when really they start using it, implementing in their life, and then they feel better, and they are more innovative, more collaborative, and then they produce more value for the company.
I want to open another piece of parenthesis. I hate the satisfaction surveys after a training. How satisfied are you from 1 to 5 about the training? What the hell? If I had fun, of course I'm going to be super satisfied. There is no discussion. But did it have an impact in my life? Would I remember? Did I do something about it? That's real impact. And that brings me to my next question, Reka. How do you measure the effectiveness of your interventions in improving employee well-being?
Yeah, so there are more ways. One is like surveys, but not only staying on this level, how much you liked it, but going already, before the intervention or program into the depth, of the level of collaboration that is out there in the team, depending on, what is the topic that we are tackling, work-life balance, stress. And this is in a way of subjective measurement that people then provide and then give us before we start working together. And then similarly, we measure these things after our program as well. So this is a subjective input. What is still out there, and that depends on also on the company, what they have already in place, because I am on the opinion that we shouldn't overload people with more and more, surveys and measurements. They wouldn't like us. So that's why we can, plug ourselves into some existing systems and measurements. And companies have already, a lot of data out there. But the problem is that they sometimes, cannot gather them together, especially if we talk, and I work with big organizations. So the data is there, they just cannot get it together. So this is something that we can also then help. So we don't have to, now issue our own measurement, but we just gather this data at the beginning of the program, what is already out there. And then, depending on the frequency of the new data, then we can measure it after the program. And then what you said about, really the impact versus engagement. So in such programs, you can also do, we do more in-depth interviews to really measure behavior change. And that can be, if we work together, with the leader and the team, that can then really show how, for instance, the behavior of the leader changed, how that impacted the team. That takes a bit, of course, more time, and it's not just a ticking a box, but it definitely gives then us a more in-depth view, and even, for a case study, more information what really has happened there.
Reka, you brought back memories of my corporate life where there was a time where there was like quarterly pulse surveys, every time more than 50 questions. So, and you know how it is. After that number 20, you start filling up bullshit because you are fed up and you don't even understand the language of what it means. And I know that these surveys were super expensive. That was amazing, how ineffective. So one, difficult to understand by normal people. Second, who was watching that? I don't know. I don't know who was reading it, or were they doing something about it? That's
Yeah. But that's exactly what you say. So I wouldn't just advise anyone just now to issue a well-being survey on the top of all the other survey. You can plug in some questions, or you can then really use you can really use metrics, for instance, about attrition, retention, number of holidays not taken, so all these metrics. Plus, we have a lot of information in systems that people use, like Microsoft Viva, if you use Microsoft systems, or any other apps that is out there with well-being. And what is still, so I recently had this experience, and I always emphasize it anyways, that you have the numbers, but then you have to listen to this data and then see what is the story there. And I had an interesting input recently on a workshop from one region in a big organization. And I like the input. It was something that was about also in terms of my thinking, what we could include in the well-being initiatives. But then it turned out that it was not really there on the other regions. So I talked to my sponsors, to the client, if they know, then what is this? Because I like it, but it's a very like a standalone input. And then it turned out that this specific region had recently a big issue with the leadership, and that's why that's on the top of people's mind, why we should focus on that side of well-being. But it was not always there, and yeah, you get sometimes ideas from people that might be just not so relevant for everyone. It's just a specific problem, but of course you have to tackle it. You just have to be mindful. Okay, is it really for the whole organization, or we have a specific issue in that team, and then we can tackle that.
Reka, you have been working with customers who are in different regions. Let's talk about maybe Europe. I know that you have been going around the Middle East. I know that. So do you see any different symptoms about the well-being in corporations that depending on the location or in the culture?
There is this expression, in German, Jein. So, of course, there are. So even there is the company culture, which is quite strong, and it goes beyond the borders sometimes. So then I can say maybe not so much because it depends more on the company. But then even within a company, when we see that there is a region like where we had war, a more economic uncertainty, then this impacts that certain group of people and their well-being and might not be seen in other parts of the company, in other regions. So yeah, it's a complex question, and yeah, the answer is yes, definitely. Certain regions have different challenges because they are also on a different journey. Maybe we can use the word maturity, but it's an evolution everywhere, and it's also cultural. So I wouldn't downgrade one region from the other. So it's just yeah, they have different challenges in the society, and that impacts the well-being of the people differently. Do you have specific questions about different regions? Should we go into some examples or?
I would love to. I mean, what I'm interested is to have your perspective on, like, I mean, for instance, let's take Latinos like me. We have usually hierarchies that are a little bit paternalistic. So the boss is like the father. So he's dictating what to do. So I guess that affects differently the environment of employees. They might have a set of challenges. Then we have the Europeans, a lot of independence and maybe a lot of wanting to have more time for their specific outside work purpose. Like I have heard about the subcultures. When I say subculture, it means that Berlin, for instance, people in Berlin are behaving in such a different way versus the rest of Germany because their well-being has really impregnated in the validity of having their own self-expression concerning their lifestyle. It is huge. So that's what I was interested to know if there was, what was your specific challenges that you had to solve in the different parts of the world.
Yeah, I hear you, and I have seen that as well. For instance, when you say the Latinos or Latin America, the social connections there are also very important. Plus, you say it's more maybe more hierarchical. So there, for instance, the role of the leader, how well-being is role modeled there, and really, the leader is taking the lead and authentically sponsoring it. It can be really impactful because people expect that, and it's good for them to see. But this is the same in Europe. I mean, we also need leaders here who role model it authentically. But still, there is maybe a difference there. And from my recent visit, for instance, in the Middle East, and I think they are also quite, different. There is differences between countries, so we cannot say that Europe is also so big and diverse. So I can specifically talk about this experience that I had in Saudi Arabia, because that was a public event where I participated, the design-a-thon. So not like a corporate, it was more a societal. And I found it really interesting that the top of mind, the problem of social isolation, like losing social connections were there, because there are many people who are moving from the countryside to the big city, and this impacts also young people. So and what I would say that it's the same here in Europe, or it has been the same. Maybe they are now more like stronger in this movement, that here we have already had. And yeah, we have been in this problem for a longer time. And then there is Australia, for example, and they are really leading on well-being ideas and initiatives. On the other hand, if we think about Australia from here, oh, life is so good there. They are so chill. So we have these yeah, interesting ideas about countries, which might be true on one side. They still have then different well-being issues.
That's true. With your experience, without naming corporations, I want to understand what are the biggest, like, what the hell misunderstandings about well-being that you have observed. So corporations that thought that well-being or their people were feeling that, and in reality it was something else. What are the biggest crazy stuff that you have ever heard?
Yeah, well, when I started this work and first went out there with my idea of organizational well-being, it was 2019, so 5 years ago. That's when I left consulting in that sense, and started the first version of my company, Wellbeing Designers. But back then it was already called Wellbeing Design, but yeah, I didn't have the full approach. And I went to companies mainly here in Switzerland, in this region, and the usual answer was, yeah, it's interesting. So, and I didn't also fully know who to talk to. I have to be honest, I didn't necessarily want to talk to with HR, because then it's considered to be this soft element. And I know that this changed now. Now I am happy to talk to HR, because I know that they are taken more seriously as well. Back then, I tried to talk more about with business leaders, and then they said, well-being, yeah, we have yoga class, we give Jimabo to the people, like, what else do you want? and yeah, it was a big process, and still going on, this education of companies. These some I am saying that I was a pioneer, but I had a new idea which was maybe not out there so much. And now the more we are, the more we spread the importance of this work, and not only the look and feel, but that we have numbers out there from serious institutions that really helps to tackle this perception of yoga classes. And I have to admit that I am a yoga teacher myself as well, so that's the biggest fun of this equation, that and because it helped me, but what I am standing for, that everyone has to find their own way to cultivate well-being in their lives.
Indeed, and you made me think about what you say again. Less is more. I mean, I'm pretty sure that you have heard about this study that's showing that when a company has too many options for well-being activities, there is very little people who get interested to subscribe to these options, because maybe these options are talking about the symptoms, but in the structure and the day-to-day of the organization, the essentials are not being taken care of. So it doesn't matter that you are going to have, I don't know, mindfulness training if at work is a house of crazy people, like everybody's stressed all the time. If your boss is going to be yelling at you because you didn't do a good enough job. So it's the essentials that need to be taken care of first. And it doesn't matter how many, if you have 50 different trainings for your people, they don't give a shit, because they know that the essential is not covered. They will feel the same when they get back to the office.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I am advocating as well, that instead of, creating all these fancy programs, which we need because we learn from them, and maybe not so many, as many as we have, At the same time, yeah, we need to tackle the problem of the workload, so people have actually time to do these programs and to take care of their well-being, whatever way they choose. And then the leadership style and the culture, because if everything is toxic around you, then you can meditate 10 hours a day, but then you go into that environment and then it's gone in 1 minute. And actually was my own trigger and experience back then as a consultant on a crazy project that pushed me to start think about this more systemic approach.
I thought that as a consultant, any project is a crazy project.
There are crazier and super crazy project as well.
Okay, there is different types of crazy.
Yeah, different levels of craziness.
In you started back in 2019. So what is the trends that you have seen emerging in the area of employee well-being? Is it more into the tech, or is it more into the understanding of how our brain functions? What have you observed?
Yeah, so since then, definitely, the shift from physical towards mental was visible during these years. Expanding a bit the understanding, and then from the mental, because then it started to be too mental, I think, these years, that either, it was about meditation, mindfulness, or like having a psychologist, a counselor. And then I think we then lost maybe some people who luckily don't have this problem, or who were not ready for it, because everyone needs some kind of, I call it like mental reset and recharge. But if you so you have to meet everyone where they are, and that's why I also like still to start everything, or our programs as well, we start from a more tangible or physical well-being, because everyone has a body. We need to move, we need to eat, we need to sleep, and then and financial, because that's also really important. Like, it's the bottom of the Maslow pyramid, that you feel safe, and then you can think about everything else. And then when you tackle this, then you can go into the areas of emotional and mental health. So for instance, if you sleep enough, you realize that you are more patient with your colleagues, and then how that affects your mental state, and how you recharge. So connecting all these dots, and I think this is going on, that's also in the world. So we tend to focus on one area, but now it's coming together. And really, you are asking me about trends and what's coming. So I think of course AI is a huge topic, and I really see it. I am one of those who sees it more as a positive, or can be used as a positive enabler of our well-being, that we are more effective. And this means that we don't take on more work, but we are just fine what we have, and then we become more effective. So we have more time then to do something else, stand up, go for a walk, take care of our well-being. But of course, it also has the danger. This needs really a lot of self-awareness, how we use technology, because that digital well-being is really important. So this is one trend around AI. The second one is the human sustainability, or people sustainability trend. And I am very excited to see how this evolves, because basically this says that besides the environmental metrics that we need to report, or after a certain size, above a certain size, companies need to report, do ESG reporting. These might include more metrics in the future about the well-being of the workers, maybe even the suppliers, we work with. And that could be huge, because then it's really not ticking the box, because it's not about how many programs you do, but really how people feel. So then you have to do impactful programs. I am very much looking forward to this.
Oh, me too. I think that would be a great day where we need to open the champagne. If mental well-being is included in the ESG report, that definitely today there is still like a couple of tools that we can access online to verify the culture of an organization. But I still feel that people are not doing it enough, because sometimes, I mean, the same company that has received just an award as a workplace, best workplace to work, is in Indeed or one of these platform for surveys rated, I don't know, 2 stars out of 5 in terms of work culture. And people are saying the most toxic culture in the world and blah, blah, blah. So there is a misalignment, and I hope that this gets sorted out because they have to declare real data from their employees. That would be a great day indeed. Reka, let's talk about the worst case scenario. What is the Armageddon scenario if we don't solve this well-being issue in corporates? What is the worst case scenario that can happen?
I mean, we talk a lot about longevity nowadays.
Hmm?
You know, if we don't solve it, then there is no longevity because people like won't live long or won't have not only long but won't have a healthy lifespan. Yeah, because they just burn out at work.
Mm. That's something that I can easily imagine. Reka, it was really nice to speak with you, even though we are not that far away, like 2 hours and a half train maybe to go to your place. How can people reach you out if they have questions about how to drastically change their work culture, redesign it, do the right actions, measure the right impact? How can they reach you out, Reka?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I guess you might include the link to my profile as well. So my first name is, yeah, it's not so easy. It's short, but not easy. So I can spell it Reka, Reka, and my surname is Deak, Deak. So this is definitely where I will be responsive. And I also have my email address, hello@rekadeak.com, or you can find me on the company website, on the book or call, www.wellbeing.design, or I also have my personal website, rekadeak.com. So I am very much looking forward to hearing from your listeners, because I think it's really cool how we connect maybe, our crowd through this podcast, because I also have my listeners on the Wellbeing Designers podcast. So now we can, merge them together.
Reka, it was really lovely to speak with you. I'm grateful to our common friend that make us meet way before to discuss about this
Yes.
topic of work culture, way before. So thank you very much for your time. Really was lovely to host you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ivan. And let's continue this conversation also face to face soon.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.
Bye.